I believe this is my first goal ever in Major League Soccer. And I didn't know what to do and how to react. It's so cringy to watch. I didn't know what to do. I basically hid my face and didn't know what to do. Looked up at my family.
Wow, that was awesome. I love the fact that you had no idea what to do.
I didn't know what to
I
do.
want to go. I got to go. What the heck? I'm a defender. I'm not supposed to score goals.
On the table, Dr. JPT, bring the hard truth, set it free. On the table.
Mike, I'm excited you're here. Fantastic. Pumped. This is our World Cup series. Basically, I'm talking to all the people I've known through my career in soccer medicine. And listen, I know you since 1999.
Yes.
So you were a professional athlete for a year when I first came in, right? You went right.
Barely.
Right?
The league was hanging on, barely, but yes.
Bailey. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the Bailey hanging on in the beginning, but kind of tell me a little bit about soccer, from the youth game. I don't know if you remember, but we have a mutual friend, Mitch Decter, that I think you played some youth events with.
Of course.
I think you might have gone to Europe with them and played soccer with them, and then turns out his father becomes the team doctor.
Dr. Decter, yeah.
But talk about like your mentality of youth soccer, college soccer, and then boom, you're in the pros.
Well, first of all, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be here, John. I mean, we do go way back. Been gaps that we haven't been in touch, but it's always like just yesterday, and it's unbelievable to see what you've done. And to let everybody know what you did for my son last year, who broke his leg, was second to none. But you know that.
But he's doing great, and he pushed himself. So
yeah, if you think about it, I'm 50 years old now. You think about it, 35, 40 years ago when I started soccer, soccer wasn't even a niche sport in this country. It was basically unheard of, My parents threw me in too early because I was crazy running around the house. I played every sport imaginable, from baseball, basketball, wrestling, lacrosse.
My sport, wrestling.
Yes, well, wrestling, of course. And there's a funny story about why I stopped that, but maybe we'll talk about another time.
Yeah. We'll do another podcast on wrestling.
About me and the referee, if you're hard to believe. For some reason, I gravitated to soccer. It was constantly moving. It was no timeouts, no breaks in the play. And then little by little, as I got to junior high and high school, I started making the select team, the state team, which was all basically new around that time. And long story short, decided in 10th grade if I was going to look to maybe get a scholarship, I had to focus on one sport, and soccer was always it. Had a great high school career, won the high school national championship at St. John the Baptist West Islip, which was amazing. And then from there, I decided, which was basically things that I've always done in my career, is I took the road less traveled. I actually had 5 Division I scholarship offers, and I decided to go to Division II. And because the coach, Ray Reed, stepped in and said, I can't promise you playing time or anything, but if you want to make the Olympic team, which is my goal, I guarantee you I'll get the Olympic coach to come watch you play. Everybody else said you'll start from the first moment you step on, and I hated that. Right. I wanted the challenge. Went there, sure enough, was with the Olympic team for 8 months before the '96 Olympics. Didn't make it ultimately. And then that just catapulted me into this new league, Major League Soccer.
So starts right after the World
Cup. Off the
Cup.
backbone of the last World Cup.
You're one of the first 3 years of the class coming in, right?
Yeah.
1998, right?
Our tryout, I guess you could say, where the coaches came to watch, was literally we were staying at a Holiday Inn. We were on dirt fields in Florida, and that was basically the combine and the draft. I got drafted at halftime of the All-Star game in college, and I didn't even hear my name called. Over the loudspeaker at halftime, they called my name. The guy I was playing with said, I think you're going to New York. Well, I didn't hear it. And then, bam, right into Keene College, New Jersey.
So think about this. You come out of college, you walk into now Keene College.
Which is our professional environment.
Which is a professional environment, which between you and I was 2 beat up fields behind a beat up locker room and building of the East Campus of Kean University. You walk in, and what is your first thought?
Well, I'm ecstatic, because if you take it back 2 years earlier, when it just became a possibility in your mind that, okay, there's a new league starting up and I could actually go and make money. Now, money, that's a small thing, it wasn't a lot of money, but you're able to do that instead of go sit behind a desk somewhere. So it was thrilling. It was absolutely unbelievable. But yes, walking into another university that was actually lower standard than the university I just came from was very, very interesting. And especially, sometimes to have the field hockey team or something have precedence over us for a practice was very humbling.
No performance
Nope,
center, no
nope.
nutritionist.
No.
You had a full-time athletic trainer. You had me start coming in
Yeah.
part-time as a favor,
Yep.
as an athletic trainer, studying to be a physical therapist. You had a physician that just had passion about soccer, but everything we didn't have then, still success.
Yeah. I mean, you learn, you grind. I remember the amount of times that I came to Stu and yourself as well. The day before a game, when I got kneed in the quad and it's blowing up, and saying, "I need to play tomorrow. I need to do what can you do for me?" And with all the advances now, just to know back then, just to stim in the ice and the massage and the hot compress and all that stuff, you guys, we all dealt with what we had.
Well, it is interesting. So we're talking about Stu Schwerner, the head athletic trainer at the time at the MetroStars when you were there.
Yep.
And he had come in, literally, you guys came in the same year. I believe you started at 98. And when he first went there, and I don't even know if you knew this, there was no stim machine. We actually had to pull a favor from a colleague of mine to get some modalities to the training center. But talk now a little bit about, and I'm going to embarrass you a little bit.
Oh, boy.
All right. I'm going to give you a little bit of
some water.
embarrassment. All of a sudden, you go in as Mike Petke, and then one day you come in and you are every teenage girl's heartthrob.
Oh, my God.
I won't tell your wife, Kim, we brought this up, but she may see it. All of a sudden, you've got blonde hair. You are, everywhere you walk in, there's at least 30 to 40 15-year-old girls that want an autograph.
You make it sound so creepy.
From Mike Petke. No, but it was like you were in New York, New Jersey. You were your own Beatle. You were one of your own Beatles. You were part of the Beatles, but you weren't. And you walk into the room, and I remember after games going upstairs, and I remember one time you played the guitar up there or whatever, but I remember going upstairs, and there was never a time someone didn't want to meet Mike Petke. And you know what? I'd love to say
what happened to those days.
I would love to say it was about you playing, but it was all about your blonde hair. Give me a glimpse of the rationale of the blonde hair.
Well, the blonde hair started in college. We talked earlier about the Olympic team. I was there for 8 months, and that was basically the backbone of the 98 and 2002 World Cup. That was that group who was a couple of years older than me. I was a young guy. I had a tough experience for 8 months with that. I used to have long hair. I came back and told my roommates I want to do something differently. Shaved my head, buzzed my head, and went to CVS and bought $5 hair dye and burned the crap out of my scalp. Turned blonde, and then I was playing back to feeling good, playing well, so I kept it. The funny thing about the MetroStars those first years was the league was still obviously looking for an identity. They were looking for somebody they could promote in each market. And with my blonde hair, I remember coming home one day and my mom and dad said, Aunt Gloria called from Pennsylvania. I said, okay. He said she was at McDonald's and the placemat was a picture of you. And I'm looking at my parents saying, wait, I'm on McDonald's placemats? Was never told. Didn't make a cent from that. I was on the whole tri-state area. So they were literally taking my image in the early days and just with my blonde hair and throwing it everywhere. I think
now, I'm sure you weren't getting any royalties at that
zero.
point.
That's my point. When I say zero, I remember they used to have a rule of 3, they called it. If they put 3 people or more on anything, then they don't have to pay us. It was in the contract. So there was never an individual on anything. It was always 3 people. And you say, well, this is interesting. But listen, it was such a new thing, and I think that went a long way with the promotions, these young kids playing soccer. It was 25 million kids still playing soccer in this country. That all of a sudden, as a professional league, they're coming. Crazy guy with blonde hair who's kicking people and has a nose ring and doing all this crazy stuff. It was enjoyable and fun, but not financially, I'll tell you that.
Well, I thought it was awesome because, again, it was about the league creating an identity. It was about you creating an identity in a sport that America was really starting to fall in love with.
Yeah.
And you were and most people don't realize this, but you were a trendsetter of bringing people to the game.
Where were you back then to become my my agent or something like that.
Listen, I would have broken a good deal. You would have got paid. But let's move a little bit further, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about playing, leadership, sort of the skills you learned as a player that translated into life.
Well, I mean, we talk about discipline, controlling your emotions, which obviously I was never great at. You know, I've gotten better, but that was a tough one. Being able to work within a group setting, those are not easy things. You know, I mean, even going nowadays to watch youth sports, my kids, they're outgrowing it, but when I did, you know, just to you be able to see who the natural leaders are on that team. But when you're doing it, when you're that young and growing up, it just comes natural to some people. You know. I was always an example, lead by example guy because of my emotions would always get the best of me. I would call it competitiveness, which it certainly was, but it was almost a fear of failure to some extent, more than the gratification of winning something. I hate even to this day if I lose something. My wife, we play cards all the time. If I'm losing to her, obviously I'm not going crazy, but inside it's this really weird
The
feeling.
competitive edge.
That takes a couple of minutes for me to, you know, work it out in my mind and then get on. But as you get older and as you get in these professional environments, you know, you have to learn who you could push, especially as a coach, but even as a player or a leader, a young kid who you have to put your arm around and say something to, as opposed to a young kid that you could verbally smack aside the head and they respond to that. You know, Tim Ream, who I'm sure everybody knows,
Yeah,
you know, my last year was his first year. And Tim, you could tell right away, was somebody that was going to succeed, no matter if that was in Major League Soccer or was overseas. And he was one of the few people that he needed both of those things. He needed a smack in the head, but then you realize quickly in certain aspects that it's not time to smack him around, it's time to go. And it's learning those things, and I don't know exactly how. Experience. He just learned.
So you came from mom and dad?
Well, yes, a lot of.
I mean, I remember going to games, and I would always see your mom and dad there. And
well, they were the yin and the yang.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? I mean, my dad was the one that wouldn't.
And the only reason why I bring it up is we have a lot of parents that watch On the Table with Dr. Jag PT. And, you know, ultimately, sometimes we forget what our parents gave us.
Oh, gosh. I mean, my dad would not talk to me at times. And my dad and I have a great relationship, you know. He wouldn't speak to me after youth games if I played bad for days. And my mom was the one with the arm around. So, yes, of course, it's always, and I think that's important.
But it was better than yelling at you.
Of course. Of course. It's always that yin and yang. But here's a little something that I could throw, what really drove me, especially from a physical therapy standpoint and stuff like that, that I know I could have played 3-4 more years in the league if I didn't play through a lot of the stuff. And the reason why, my dad worked for the Long Island Railroad for 38 years. When I was a kid, I used to walk on his back all the time, and I thought it was a fun game. But I had to do that because he was literally dying from working so many hours to train.
Had back pain.
And then when he retired,
releasing the muscle.
Releasing the muscles.
Through acupuncture.
Yep. He'd always lay by the wall, and I'd have my hands on the wall.
Walking up.
Yeah, of course. And he got a
could have gave him a card to Jag Physical Therapy, but Jag wasn't around.
Jag was not.
Jag wasn't
there was
around.
no physical therapy basically back then.
You're right.
But anyway, long story short, when he retired, never forget, he bought a new car. It was like a Honda Accord or something like that, you know. And my parents were very minimalist people. And he bought that from a check that the Long Island Railroad gave him because he took 3 sick days in 37 years, sick days. And I guess part of the union was the sick days you don't use add up. $30,000-$40,000. He never missed a day, and he worked through everything. And I'm telling you, and not because I'm on your show, but the you and Stu's of the world that extended my career because I played through everything. I was always worried that my spot was not guaranteed. I never thought that my spot was there for me to always have. No matter how good I played, getting called up to the national team, the next week back to the MetroStars, at that point, it was, all right, I can't let up a little bit. And I would play through so much. But you guys, you know, the therapy that was given me back then and the stim machines, as we call them, definitely prolonged my career.
When we talk about the work ethic, we talk about the leadership. You're a guy that played youth soccer, high school soccer, college soccer, professional soccer, had a couple of stints back and forth with the national team. Ultimately, put that together, that translates you to start to think about, you know, I want to stay in the game and I want to coach.
Well, that's interesting. I remember the moment that I realized that I couldn't go on playing anymore. My body just wasn't the simplest things that I was able to do a week before was very difficult for me for the week after. And
Imagine if you're an old wrestler.
yeah. Well, I did wrestle, but I stopped in high school, and I still, I think, have a couple of injuries from that. But it was never a thought of mine
To leave the game.
No, to coach.
Coach.
It was never a thought of mine. In fact, the complete opposite. Not only was it a thought of mine, I said, I don't want to coach. That was early. I said, once I'm away from this, this routine of literally missing every birthday, every holiday, besides the winter months and traveling every week and not seeing my kids, I said, I'm done with that. But,
and I even recall you had some unbelievable entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, that's the thing. So what you're saying is I also did that within the Red Bull organization. I got approached that they wanted me to stick around in some facet, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I worked a deal out that I think it was the personal developmental coach of the young rookies, and then I'd work in the office as some sort of liaison to the fans or something. And I realized very quickly in that office that the walls start closing in very, very fast, and I hated it. I loved working with the people, Eric Soler, guys like that, Christina Giunta that we all know.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but I just couldn't be there. So
big difference out on the pitch.
Very big difference in the
sitting
fresh
in a
air.
10 by 10 room and having to go to a meeting at a certain time.
Yeah. So the times that I was doing the coaching, I just gravitated more towards, and it became that I was 6 hours here, 6 hours here, to 10 hours here, 4 hours, to completely on the coaching side now. And with the coaches, I won't name the coaches, but the coaches were foreign at that point, and they really didn't give a lot of credit to the youth players that were on the team. So they basically just threw the youth to me and said, hey, the reserve team you could take. So literally threw me to the Wolves, and I was the coach of the reserve team, and I really fell in love with it quickly. I couldn't believe it, about working with these young athletes and trying to improve their play. And I just completely fell in love with it. Didn't think where I was going to go as quickly as I did, but made a decision with my wife, and the decision was made very difficultly, because I said, listen, if this doesn't work out, if I put all my eggs in a basket, I might come home to you next week and say, we're moving to San Antonio, because now I'm a coach, I have no other qualifications, and I have to go where the job is. Yep. And we had a long conversation and just said, let's go for it.
Well, think about with you and your family. You moved a bunch of times as a player.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're at the MetroStars, you're at DC United,
Yep.
you're at Colorado,
Yep.
Came back to Red Bull, now you're a coach. You end up going back to Red Bull coaching, but then you jumped into Real Salt Lake. You even had a short stint with, I believe, Real Monarch, correct?
Real Monarch,
which
yeah.
is what brought you out to Salt Lake.
Yep.
So you and your family are moving to build your career. But before we jump out that way, tell me a little bit about that first day the player becomes the coach. And you walk out on the pitch, and you got to design the plan. You got to figure out the performance. You got to figure out the conditioning. This is all on you now. You're the one that's got to say, what did I enjoy as a player? What did I not enjoy as a player? What does that first day look like for you? And more importantly, at the end of the first year, what did you change?
Wow, you're like Walter Cronkite here, man. Great questions, and just like deep, detailed questions.
Can you say that again to my team?
Well, I honestly, the recollection that I have early on, and I never forget this, I got great advice about 3 months into coaching the youth players. And they recognized, somebody came up to me and said, who's an older person, came up to me and said, remember, you're not a player anymore. Because I was still acting like a player. I was still jumping in every practice. I was still jumping in, playing with them.
Do it this way.
Yeah,
do it this way.
Yeah, stopping it, saying, this is what I need you to do. And he was saying, you have to be on the outside looking at the whole picture instead of being on the field and seeing just what's in front of you. And it was crazy. From that moment on, I hardly ever played again, stepped back and watched it. And after the first practice, I said, you got to be kidding me. It was like a switch like this. And it gave me a real appreciation of the previous coaches that I had. Not all of them, but the ones that I really were impressed by.
Share a couple of the coaches you had at the pro level.
Oh, my God. Alphonse Mandela was my first coach, who was my youth coach as well back in the 80s, Long Island Youth Soccer.
Amazing person.
Amazing person, and he was
amazing
a great
mind.
coach. Absolutely. Then we went to Bora Milutinovic, who was the '94 U.S. national team coach. He coached China, Mexico, all over the world. From him, Octavio Zambrano. Bob Bradley for a month until he traded me. Thanks, Bob. Traded me to DC. And then on and on. Peter Novak at DC United, who I won my only championship with. Amazing. And then ended with Hans Bach from Sweden, who was it was great to see how they brought a different European approach over to it. But back to the coaching, I mean, I learned more from the coaches that I didn't agree with and I didn't like what they were doing than the coaches that I loved what were doing. It's because that's where the player came, is that if you don't like or don't respect or don't believe in what you're doing, it is the most difficult thing to continue doing that thing, you know, and to work towards something and to try to win and try to get better. So that's why always in the beginning, I wanted the collaboration with the players. I'm the boss. At the end of the day, I'm going to make the final decision, but I need this to be a collaboration to some extent, so you're all buying into what we're going to accomplish.
You open the communication chain.
Yep, you need
again,
to.
And what we try to teach the parents and the kids watching the show is sports, not just soccer.
Yep.
Teach leadership, communication skills, understanding the component of teamwork. Sounds like you enjoyed the coaches you didn't like more than the coaches you liked.
Yeah.
And took more pieces from them.
100%.
If you had to say your style of coaching versus your style as a player, what would that be?
I'm more open, more open to different ideas. Obviously, I love the collaborative effort. I'd like to think that I reined in my emotions a little bit, but people might argue that I didn't. Because once, you know, they're seeing you constantly yelling at them or yelling at something, after a week, it's like, here we go. So you have to learn how to go with those emotions like that. But I had a real respect for the building of a team once I became a coach. Because when you're playing, you don't really, you know that we're building towards something. You don't realize how much the details are involved in it. And that's something.
And the pieces.
And the pieces.
That you're putting in place.
Yeah. And it's something early on that really bit me in the ass, to be quite honest with you, is I wasn't detailed enough. And I thought I was, you know, I assumed. Assumption is the worst thing that a coach could do. I assumed that, all right, well, I don't have to go over this area of pressing because that's obvious, you know, when it's not real obvious, you know, they need to know what you want to do. So it was a lot of trial and error. But having said that, the collaboration for me was the biggest thing. Not just with players, but mostly with my assistant coaches and with anybody who was around in that organization that had a great idea that would help.
And out of the gate, at Red Bull, you were successful when you became the head coach.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think a lot of it had to do with the timing, you know, and I was the assistant coach there for 2 years, and I had a great relationship with the likes of Thierry Henry, players like that, Dax McCarty, Bradley Wright Phillips, just to name
Great
some.
players,
yeah. So I think the transition was easy, but there was some really tough times there, very, very, very tough times. But at the end of the day, I was very experienced. I had great people around me. And for every error that I made, I had the right people that were there to help me correct that and to learn from it.
Tell me a little bit about the in and out of the national team. We got the World Cup coming up. You had a couple of good opportunities to go up to the national team, sort of be looked at, show what you've got. Talk a little bit about the invitation to play for America. And what goes through your mind as a player when you get the invite, and more importantly, when you're there and you're training with the best of the U.S.
Yeah.
What's going through your head?
I mean, it's surreal. It really is. I mean, again, growing up, it wasn't like now. You had to really look for an opportunity to find the national team playing on TV. And usually it was a Spanish channel, you know, that the lines are squiggle in between. So just to get to that moment, it almost, I remember showing up in San Jose, California for my first call up with the full team. I played in the youth national teams and everything, but the full team, Bruce Arena, right a year or two before the 2002 World Cup. And it was almost like it wasn't real. You know, I'm there, and Landon Donovan, who was a very, very young player at that point. Eddie Pope, Jeff Agus, who you
were
had
kids.
on.
Well, Jeff wasn't a kid.
Well, Jeff wasn't a kid.
Yeah.
He was the Grizzly veteran who I played the same position as him, and I think he might have given me a couple of shots in practice to let him know that it's his position. But it was amazing. I mean, guys like Bruce Arena, a legend in this game, you know, made it very easy to come up there. The thing that I had going against me, is what we talked about earlier with the Olympic team, is that I was 2 years off that prime age that was right there making the World Cup team up. So
How old were you at this point?
At that point, I was 21, maybe 22. And the rest of the guys were, you know, in their 23s, 24s, the bulk. Eddie Popes, Carlos Yamosa, Eddie John, all these guys. But it was an unbelievable experience to be around, to go from your club team, you're playing with Tab Ramos, who's one of the best Americans ever, and you're playing with great players. But when you get to the national team, you're playing with the best of the best, and every practice is that much more elevated. Every demand is that much higher. Every expectation is that much higher, and it's almost like it could swallow you whole in every little mistake you make. But it was great to be at that level, to bring back then to at the time the MetroStars and your club team, that experience, and it just raises your game. It shows you where you need to get to and what you need to do to get there.
Being at that level, when you went back to the club team, did it change your mindset at the club team to sort of lead a little bit more or bring the experience to people that may never get that experience?
It should have. And I think in certain areas it did. Having said
Just
that,
remember, I was there.
I know.
Okay,
and you remember how I was, I mean, it was tough for me to walk into a locker room with Alexi Lalas, Tab Ramos, Tony Miola, to name just three. Even like someone like Mark Semioli,
Yeah.
Who I'm this young kid, and it was, I remember Tab Ramos.
And let's face it, Mark Semioli is smarter than all of us.
Oh my God,
I mean,
Stanford boy.
Kid walks through Stanford,
Yep.
so
Yeah, but I remember Tab Ramos humbling me. I remember after I had a little bit of success and was on the team with him for almost a year, sat down in my locker in practice one day. This was like 6 months into me playing. And he always called me Buddy. So I turned to him one day, I said, Dad, why do you always call me Buddy? And he looked at me, and I won't say the word he said, because I don't know your name. And it was just such a humbling moment. I said, holy crap, this is a guy, Tab Ramos, who played on World Cup teams and played in Italy, and I've been playing for 6 months. He has to know my name. But it was obvious, he was telling me, hey, you're nobody right now. You have to keep working. And that was amazing. So it was difficult for me to come back because you know me, John. I'm an all or nothing type guy. There's not a lot.
120%.
Yeah. So to walk back in and to be more of a leader, to me, would probably revolve around, if I don't like the first thing on the field, I'm screaming at someone and trying to kill them. That was only my second year in the league. I learned as I got older, and that's not it. So coming back, it was more being aware of things, what it takes to get there. And being more aware of, okay, this might cut it here in practice and key in college, but if I want to get to the next level, these little mistakes can't happen. That was the aha moment.
So you get coaching success, right? You're having some good success at Red Bull. You get an opportunity to go out to Real Salt Lake. Talk to us a little bit about, is there a mindset change going from a Red Bull entity to Real Salt Lake? What are you thinking when you get the opportunity at Real Salt Lake? Is it same nuts and bolts, or are we changing some screws and nails in there? What's the thought process?
The thought process is it's going from driving a Corvette to driving a Pinto, the old Pintos who are discontinued now. I turned down a number of opportunities in the USL, the minor leagues after Red Bull. Just didn't feel right. This, which turned out not to be right, but this felt right. It was somebody that I played against who was the GM there. They wanted me to come in and revamp the minor league team. And there was no expectation on my part or their part, at least was said, to go to the first team, So the pressure was off. I just wanted to get back to doing what I loved and moving my family halfway across the country. But getting there was a culture shock, to go from a huge entity like Red Bull to go into...
Plus, you're born and raised New York,
Yes.
New Jersey area,
Yeah.
and now you're in Utah.
Now I'm at stop signs, four-way stop signs, and everyone's going, no, you go, no, you go. And I'm going, and then I'm driving through there. It was tough going to the grocery store and seeing the prices, how much cheaper they are than New York, and just see everybody smiling. Everyone's no edge to anybody, no grit, no anything. Yeah. It was a culture shock. But listen, life's about experiences, and I'd like to think that I took a lot of my experiences from such a juggernaut like Red Bull, where literally I'm getting calls from Gerard Houllier, the legendary Liverpool coach, who passed away, no longer with us, but he was the sporting director, and literally having hour-long conversations with this legend, to literally going out there and you're working with people who want the sport to succeed, but a lot low.
Has never been at the level
Never.
that you had the opportunity to work with it. I mean, Red Bull's
tough.
a world name.
It was tough, but it was a good 2 years, and then it was time to get out of there.
Time to move on.
Time to
So
move on.
so now we're all looking a few weeks away from the World Cup, 2026 World Cup. My biggest question for you is, how is the U.S. team going to do?
Ooh.
You've been in this game 30 years, more. I mean, you've been in this game 40 years. I mean, you've been playing since you were a kid. We're the 2026 World Cup. It's on American soil. The press hasn't been kind. The media has definitely not been kind.
Yeah.
You're a guy raised in this system. You're a guy that's coached in this system. You're American born, baby. You're American branded soccer player. 2026 World Cup on American soil. Final is at MetLife Stadium. You were raised more than 30 miles away in Long Island from MetLife Stadium. What's your gut opinion is going to happen?
You gave me the goosebumps there, man.
Yeah.
I want to run out right now and play.
Ready to go, baby.
I would be shocked if the U.S. does not get out of the group, but shocked. The thing about
The U.S. gets out of the group.
U.S. gets out of the group, and they're going to make a strong run for the round of 16 or quarterfinals, whatever the next one is. The thing is that when you look at the talent on this team, where they're playing in this world, you look at the talent of the coach, Pochettino, that is coached at such high levels. You have to think that they're behind closed doors. They know what they're doing. They're doing things right. Results, pre-results, only count for the perception of things and probably for a little morale, but they're working on things, all right? When I look at the individuals and I look at a lot of the moments over the last year of them collectively, there is something pretty damn impressive there, okay? I believe with all my heart that it's coming together and it's going to come together. I think the Germany game and was it Senegal in Germany? They have the two games the week before. Those are going to be very telling. Okay. But this is the biggest thing by far of these players' lives. American-born players, American-raised players that are playing in their own country for the biggest thing in the world. They're going to be, and they're used to pressure. They're playing Champions League. They're playing at the highest levels. It's not going to faze them as much as perhaps former generations would. So I have nothing but such high hopes.
Round
and
of 16, round of 8.
No, I'm thinking round of 16.
Okay.
All right, and then anything could happen.
And then it's anyone's game after.
Now, every time I go to the casinos, which I don't usually, and I play sports bets, which I hardly ever do, I never win, John.
Yeah.
So I'm not a great
You're not a
predictor
great
of things. And this is not all just my heart saying this. I really do believe that there is the talent there, and they're gonna.
As a player coach, do you think it's our offense, our midfield, or our defense that takes us to the round of 16?
Well, obviously, that's a tough answer because you need all three.
Because you need everybody working together. But think about the weirdness of the media right now.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 week they're killing the scoring ability.
Yeah.
Next week we're giving up too much in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be a guy with your soccer knowledge. As you say, the coach is putting the pieces together. We're going to see in the next couple of weeks, are those pieces together? But do we have any weaknesses, or is it all about coming together and we're going to just move forward?
It's very tough for me to say these things because I was a coach, and I hate when other people analyzed what I was doing.
Second guessing.
But our transition from defense to offense is with the young players and the pace that we have and the creativity with the Pulisic, McKennie's, even Tyler Adams from behind. That is a key for us. And I think that the more that we're explosive coming out of that transition, especially at home in the heat in the day, I think that's going to be big for us. But you also look at our defense, and they have been very, very stingy at times, which is great. Our deep lying defense, when we look at the last game at the World Cup in Qatar against Holland, about the same goal was scored 2 times in a row. The first 2 goals, which was to the line, dragged back, and nobody's there. There's that hole to pocket. Those are lessons that for sure were learned. That a team like the Netherlands pinpointed that before the game and went out and executed that 2 times. So those are the little things that could come back and haunt us if we haven't learned from the past and we're not organized so great as a block defense, when we're under it, which we will be under it many times. But for me, the transition from defense to offense with the players that we have, that could be a real big potential moment for us.
What would you want parents and youth soccer players to take out of this World Cup as they're watching the games?
Well, the first is the cliche that could be them one day. That's the oldest cliche. If they could do it, anybody could do it. It's possible. Work hard, do everything right, and get there, which obviously is a nice cliche to say. But for me, I mean, we talked before about me being on a McDonald's thing, which was a microcosm of this small little area in North Jersey. Everybody who's going to be starting for the World Cup for the U.S., well, 90% of them are playing at the highest level in this world. The AC Milans, you know, the English Premier Leagues and all that. That back when I was playing, when I was a kid, no, wasn't happening. When I was a kid, most players were playing in the old NASL.
Yeah.
You know, the Long Island Rough Riders, the Colorado Foxes.
That was our national
That
team.
was that was it. And then slowly, when I started playing, we had the Landon Donovans, the Carlos Bocanegras, the Tim Howards that broke through and went over to a high level. Now you have the majority of that team or the starters that are playing at this high level. To me, that's the biggest thing for these young kids. And to take it even a step further, MLS has come so far. When you and I were there in 99, 2000, they retracted to 10 teams, and this league was not going to survive. I remember there were times my wife and I in the off season in 99 and 2000 were trying to figure out what the hell that I could possibly do if and when this league goes under. And for that to grow to what it is now, how many teams and valuations,
30 teams,
valuations at almost $1 billion,
Yeah.
It just gives to me, and not only that, how many under leagues do we have right now that are making
Yeah.
money? There's so much more opportunity, but the difficulty in getting there is so much higher because the level has gotten. If I came in at this age, if I came out into the league at this age, I don't know or honestly think that I would have the longevity and the success and the amount of games that I had 20-something years ago, because the level is just so much higher.
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
If you looked at now what's now hitting Congress and individual states are looking at it, and you were raised in the youth division, you were raised through American youth development programs, the U.S. development program, everybody's arguing about the pay-to-play concept. It's not just in soccer, it's in every sport. I mean, I hear it in baseball leagues, you hear it in football leagues, you hear it, actually, you don't hear it too much in wrestling, but you hear it in all these different things. What's your view of this concept of pay-to-play? I mean, should someone that can't afford to put their kid in a program and pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000? I mean, is there still that opportunity in America? What's your view of all this?
Well, I mean,
It's a confrontational conversation.
It's interesting, and it's tough for me to say, which I will say, but I'm a guy who paid that money for my kids. You know what I mean? The pay to play, there always has to be, if someone's donating and they're that good at what they do, they always have to be compensated for it. It's what the compensation's getting too much and where that compensation's coming from. For instance, if U.S. Soccer really wants to make a run and win a World Cup, then I don't know how much they're worth. I know they got a lot of money stockpiled from the 94 World Cup still, from Major League Soccer, and now with this,
I'm sure with this one,
2020, they're going to make, that money has to be reinvested in the right way. The amount of local club teams in the state of New Jersey alone who are called so-and-so elite, so-and-so academy. I hate to say it, but the majority of parents, their trigger words, they hear these elite and academy and they hear an accent or something. Again, I hate to say it. And
it's not a Brooklyn or Long Island accent.
No, it's not, definitely not. Their kids are going to be the next Maradona, the next Messi in their mind, and they're paying $10,000. I did at my local club, which I won't say which club it is, but I did at my local club when I got back from Utah. I wanted to kind of give back. I said, write me a list of what you want to do. They wrote me a list that should have been a $500,000 job with the amount of things is going on there. I took a small little money just to pay my car insurance, something like that. And you get these board members in there who have never played soccer, who are only looking out for themselves, their community. They want to be elite, but they don't want to do what needs to be done to get to elite. Last thing I'll say in this to prove the point is that I got Tab Ramos on the phone, who has his own little soccer thing going, and I wanted to get him into our club to be the coach, not him, but his company. And they turned him down like that. And I'm sitting there going, hold on for a second. This is a local club team. I got Tab Ramos, who's founding greatness in American soccer.
The number one player ever signed to Major League Soccer.
Best player ever, who's the coach of Houston at this point, who had a game that night but got on a conference call for me with the board. Turn him down without even giving it much thought. And my whole thing to them, it had nothing to do with money. They wasn't charging a lot of money at all. It was something that happened years earlier. And I'm looking at this board and saying, you have Tab Ramos that wants to come and help out with this club that you want to be elite. And no. And so all the politicking,
Parents always think they know better.
all the politicking,
but,
all that you know that they think they know is best. Put the professionals in charge, the right people.
let the experts do it.
Tab Ramos should be running youth soccer in this whole country, and should be listening to him and what he says and fixing this. That's my
Listen,
point.
he knows how to develop players.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. So let's close. What's next for Mike Petke? Are you going to dye your hair again?
No.
I don't think your wife would like
I
that.
might be
but,
losing my hair, John.
I'm
sure.
lucky I still have some up there. It's getting a little thin, but I also have you by a bunch of years. But what's next for Mike Petke?
Well, I'll be honest with you. After, God, 30 years, almost 25 years of the professional game, I realized I wanted to be more home with my family. I wanted to watch my sons' high school games and travel with them a little bit, which I wasn't able to do before. I have not been back into soccer in a couple of years. I got a small little thing going on in my town. And I have really, at this moment, no real plans to really get back in the game. I gave what I needed to give to that, everything I had. I hope I gave something, and now it's, like the Michael Bradleys of the world who are coming up, and doing the coaching for me. But it's great to sit back and watch, especially the World Cup coming here, and watch where Major League Soccer has come to. It still gives me a lot of pride that guys like you and I had some sort of say in being a pioneer of this league in this country.
I was just fixing when you were broke. So tell me, media. I mean, you've got such a presence. You know the game. You enunciate and project with passion. Would you ever jump into the media part of the game?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I had a couple of opportunities. Maybe this will be my big breakout.
Right.
Maybe
Fox, MSG, Apple, Mike Petke is ready.
I have no idea how this is coming across the camera, but if I could always work with someone as easy as you to lead me down this path, it would be great. But no, I did some Cosmos. I did one Apple TV. I did some ESPN. I enjoy getting up and doing that, but.
And it keeps you in the game.
It keeps me in the game. I'm open to anything along those lines.
Awesome. Well, this was great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the table with Dr. Jag PT.
John, I appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
for
you,
having
buddy.
me.
Appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank you.